within the U.S. Marine Corps Navy, there's a organization, a structure called a MU, Marine Expeditionary Unit, and it's generally comprised of about 3 ships with about 2,000, 2,200 Marines. For a long time, I and other former Marine officials have been calling for a multilateral MU in which other countries can contribute, ship and personnel and create MUs that would operate in the region. Unfortunately, this 2+2 doesn't call for that. The U.S. only has 1 MU in the Indo-Pacific region. We have 6 back in the Western Hemisphere, 3 on the West Coast, 3 on the East Coast. But we only have 1 in this region. And as you know, this region is 52% of the Earth's surface. So 1 MU can't do all that. And you need at least 3 MUs to be able to operate efficiently, because when 1 MU is out to sea, the next MU is getting ready, is getting trained, and the one that just finished its deployment is, getting checked, and the personnel are, taking vacations, doing everything they need to do. So it's a continuous rotation. We don't have that in the Indo-Pacific. So our presence is very, weak and limited, I think, and not as robust as it could be. So the 2+2, in my opinion, should have called on Japan to submit or to supply ships and personnel, just like the Quad and maybe AUKUS should do as well. So it's very easy now to create a multilateral MU, and so I think we missed that opportunity. I mentioned before the Senkakus. The U.S. reaffirmed its commitment to defend the Senkakus under Article 5. To me, though, every time that U.S. leaders and Japanese leaders meet, and you may have seen this in previous interactions, and most recently when Kishida met with Biden, that was reaffirmed again. It's very odd that 2 allies need to reaffirm something that is well understood. And in 1971, in the Senate, at the time of the ratification and the deliberations on the Okinawa Reversion Agreement, the Senkakus, fall under Article 5. That was clear. That was made clear by a State Department official in the Senate. And yet, Japan has to ask each time there's a senior meeting for the U.S. to reaffirm that. If you're watching that from the outside, you tend to wonder just how solid the U.S.-Japan relationship is when the 2 countries, or particularly the U.S., needs to reaffirm that it's committed to defending the Senkakus under the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty. If you were a company president and you're meeting with another company president, you don't show the contract with that company each time and ask him or her, is this contract still valid? Yet Japan's leaders want to do that each time with the U.S. So my point is that the U.S., by not fully committing to respect Japan's sovereignty over the islands, causes a lot of confusion within Japanese policymaking circles, among the public, and it sends a very bad message to China and to the international community.
It kind of reminds me of what's happening with Taiwan and, the fact that the whole strategic ambiguity thing that the US has had as policy for many years is just creating a lot of uncertainty and confusion.
And it's gotten kind of weird too, because every time someone asks President Biden, like, will the U.S. defend Taiwan? He's like, yes, we will. And then the White House is like, what? We're just saying, we're not changing the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a pretty weird walk back. I mean, are we seeing that also with Japan, or is it different, like weird in a different way?
To me, it's just weird that this discussion has to be held in the first place. It got weird in the mid 1990s. The Clinton administration and the embassy in Tokyo at the time kind of muffed up the understanding of the obligations towards the Senkakus at that time. And that caused a lot of panic in Japan about what the U.S. was going to do. And, if you remember, a lot of the same players that we have now in the Biden administration were active in the Clinton administration at that time. So they fumbled badly, and they caused Japan to have some serious concerns about U.S. intentions. So since the mid 1990s, specifically 1996, Japan has felt a need almost continuously to make sure the U.S. is really committed to defending the Senkakus. Let's see, another issue that came up in the 2+2, which was important, but left me with a couple of questions, was that within Japan, there's a real concern about the application of the nuclear umbrella vis-a-vis Japan, in part because of Russia's statements about intending to use tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine. So many Japanese felt that that Biden didn't do enough to stand up to Russia at that time. And so they wonder if there's a similar move in East Asia, whether the Biden administration will truly defend Japan. So at this time in the 2+2, the U.S. Made clear that the defense of Japan included nuclear weapons. And the U.S. really doesn't talk about that too much. And one of the first times it did, but you don't see it in writing too much, is back in the mid 1960s. In 1965, the Japanese prime minister at the time, who was Abe's great uncle, his name was Sato Eisaku, he met with President Johnson, and this was right after the Chinese tests in 1964, the fall of 1964, the nuclear tests. And Japan was very worried about what China would do with nuclear weapons. And Johnson told Sato, and you can find these in the online memorandum of conversation, that as long as he was president, that the U.S. would defend Japan, with nuclear weapons. But to me, I think the key phrase was, as long as I'm president. And afterwards, it wasn't really spelled out or clearly written out too much. So within Japan, there's been some concern. And then if you remember, in the summer of 2021, July of 2021, China, or a video was made within China that suggested if Japan were to become involved in a Taiwan contingency, that China would wreak havoc on Japan greater than Nagasaki and Hiroshima. That the no first use policy did not apply to Japan. So there's been, at least for the past year and a half, there have been rumblings in Japan about whether the U.S. would actually use nuclear weapons to defend Japan. So in the 2+2, that was specifically mentioned. And my question becomes, was that included to neutralize those rumblings, like preemptively neutralize those rumblings, or I'm sorry, to address those rumblings, or was it preemptive to eliminate discussion within Japan about developing its own nuclear capability? And so I'm not sure on the Japanese side, why that came up. Was the Japanese government addressing genuine concerns that exist in Japan, or were they using those concerns and then getting the U.S. to acknowledge that the nuclear umbrella implied to to remove the necessity to have any discussions about Japan becoming nuclear? So I'm not sure, what was happening at that time within the Japanese government, but those are some questions I have, about the 2+2.
In general, do you think the 2+2 is moving in the right direction?
I do. I just think it's too slow. Some of the things that it's discussing, it could have done a long, long time ago. Plus, it doesn't go far enough. It's little. I don't want to say too little, but it's little and it's late.